All right, let's get right into it. Today, we are going to completely dismantle a foundational myth, the idea you've been sold your whole life about what it means to be strong. We're going straight into the source code of human endurance to figure out, once and for all, why some minds shatter under pressure while others are forged into diamonds. Welcome to the autopsy of endurance. Look, you have been lied to about the nature of strength. Plain and simple. You've been told that resilience is all about grit, right? That it comes from sheer, agonizing willpower. But honestly, that's a primitive, almost Stone Age misunderstanding of our own biology. Here's the truth. Willpower is a finite, metabolic currency. It's like a battery on your phone, and it just evaporates the second your deep, ancient survival circuits take command.
So, let's update the software, shall we? The old model, this grit model, treats strength like it's all in your head, a purely psychological effort. The new model, the one that neuroscience is actually showing us, redefines it. It's resilience, and it's a measurable neurochemical state. See, it's not about trying harder. It's about having a perfectly calibrated biological shield that is literally designed to neutralize the corrosive effects of fear.
Now, if we want to build this shield, we first have to understand what we're actually defending against. So let's perform an autopsy on stress itself. Let's analyze the enemy within. Okay, meet the command center for your body's reaction to pressure, the HPA axis. You can think of it as your brain's ancient alarm system, an incredible piece of engineering honed over millennia purely for survival. When you encounter any kind of high-stakes pressure, this is the system that pulls the fire alarm. And here's exactly how that alarm works. It's a chain reaction. First, a pressure event is detected. Second, your hypothalamus, the control tower, triggers a chemical cascade. And third, bam, your system is flooded with cortisol and adrenaline. Now, in short bursts, this is a massive survival advantage. It makes you sharp, fast, strong. But in our modern world, this system is almost always on. And that's exactly where the toxicity begins. And this brings us to the shadow of chronic cortisol. Because when that chemical flood never really recedes, it stops being a survival tool, and it becomes a full-blown neurotoxic event. Your body enters this state of perpetual biological breakdown, literally poisoning the very systems that were designed to protect you in the first place. And this damage, it isn't abstract. It's very real. Chronic cortisol kicks off what we call neural fragmentation. It completely liquefies your focus. It destroys your working memory, and it physically shrinks your hippocampus. That's the part of your brain that handles learning and context. You get trapped in the state of hypervigilance, and your prefrontal cortex, the CEO of your brain, your executive function, is effectively dismantled piece by piece. So here's the crucial takeaway from all this. That feeling of burnout, it's not just you being tired. No. You are undergoing a biological liquidation of your highest cognitive functions. It's the systematic failure of the very architecture that allows you to think, to plan, to innovate, and to be you. Okay, so we've dissected the problem. Now let's pivot to the solution. Let's look at the biology of the elite mind and really understand this neurochemical shield that allows some people to thrive where so many others break. You see, if our biology can be our enemy, it can also be our absolute greatest ally. So what is it? What is the secret weapon that separates the truly resilient from everyone else? It's a molecule. It's called neuropeptide Y, or NPY for short. This stuff is a seriously powerful anti-stress peptide that acts like a metabolic brake on the stress response. It's really no surprise that when scientists study elite performers, like special operations personnel, they find significantly higher levels of NPY coursing through their systems during high-stress events. So how does it actually work? Well, NPY's core function is to inhibit the overfiring of neurons in your amygdala, which is your brain's fear center. So it effectively turns down the volume on fear before it can overwhelm and paralyze your executive mind. It's what keeps you clinical, calm, and decisive right in the middle of a storm. But NPY isn't the only player on the field here. Resilience is also dictated by the ratio of two key hormones. So on one side, you have cortisol, the breakdown chemical. But on the other, you have its anabolic counterforce, DHEA, which is the rebuild chemical that promotes neural repair. The entire game is won or lost based on this ratio. And this really illustrates the true definition of strength. It's not about avoiding the stress response. That's impossible. It's about possessing a superior recovery architecture. It's the ability of your nervous system to snap back to a calm baseline, what scientists call homeostasis, within moments of a threat passing. That speed is everything. So the big question is, how do we build this? How do we get more of this? Let's move to our final section, the resilience protocol. This is your guide to moving beyond just coping and into the realm of true biological hardening. The protocol is built on 3 core pillars. First, controlled hormetic stress, which is basically stress inoculation. Second, vagal tone optimization, which is about using your body to control your brain. And third, building a cognitive reframing architecture to fundamentally change how you perceive the world around you. Let's break down that first pillar. Resilience is a use it or lose it function. By using brief, intense stressors, things like cold exposure or high-pressure cognitive training, you actually force your brain to upregulate its production of that key molecule, NPY. You are literally training your nervous system to associate a chaotic moment with a signal for performance, not a signal for panic. Next up, pillar 2. The vagus nerve is like a superhighway of information between your body and your brain. By using very specific breathing protocols, especially with a strong emphasis on a long exhale, you can increase your heart rate variability, or HRV. This gives you a manual override switch for your fight or flight system. You are actively neutralizing stress from the bottom up. It's a biological hack. And finally, the third pillar is all about your mental framework. The resilient mind doesn't see a threat, it sees a variable. By training yourself to maintain a high-resolution, objective view of a crisis and decoupling your personal identity from the chaos, you actively protect that all-important DHEA to cortisol ratio. The world is not going to get any less chaotic. The pressure isn't just going to disappear. So the goal isn't to hope for an easier life. The goal is for you to become more calibrated to its friction, to become what we call anti-fragile, where the stress itself actually becomes the fuel for your evolution. So remember this. True resilience is not the absence of pressure. It is the presence of an indestructible internal architecture. It's not about what you endure. It's about what you are built to withstand.
All right, let's get into it. Strategic solitude, the sovereign mind. We're about to totally reframe what it means to be alone. And trust me, this isn't about loneliness. It's about building an unshakable mind using something called strategic solitude. So first things first, let's get this straight. Loneliness is not a defect. It is a clinical filter. You need to forget everything you've been told about it, being a weakness. The idea here is that loneliness isn't some disease you need to cure. No, it's actually a powerful audit, like a test to see if your own internal voice is strong enough to stand on its own when everything else goes quiet.
And that leads us to this. This is the central challenge, right here. I want you to really think about this. If you cannot be alone with your own mind for just 24 hours, is your sovereignty even real, or is it all just a performance for everyone else? That's the question we're really digging into today.
Okay, so let's break that down. Section 1, the loneliness filter. What is it? Well, think of it as a tool, a way to audit your own internal strength. It's what separates real self-ownership from just a polished image you show the world.
And this is where it gets really crucial. Look at this distinction. On one side, you have personal branding. The 2026 focus. It's all about external performance, optimizing yourself to be likable. But on the other side, that's the real goal, personal resonance. This is about internal strength. It's about being able to not just tolerate the silence, but to actually survive it, to thrive in it, without needing a single like or follow.
That constant running away from silence, it leads directly to the core problem we're going to diagnose, and that is the pathology of assimilation. This is the name for our collective modern allergy to just being alone.
And what is assimilation? Well, it's described as the ultimate act of self-betrayal. It's what happens when you outsource your identity. You hand it over to the group, to the crowd, just so you don't have to feel the stigma of standing alone. You think you're connecting, but in reality, you're just dissolving into the background.
So how do we do it? How do we betray ourselves like that? We use what's being called social anesthesia. Think about it, that constant numbing buzz from your phone notifications, the hollow validation you get from a like, surrounding yourself with low-resonance company just to escape the silence. It's all a drug, basically, to numb yourself from being alone with your own thoughts.
And look, the cost of this is serious. It's not a small thing. By age 45, the source argues, this cost becomes an ontological debt. That's a heavy term, but think of it like an existential debt. You've borrowed so much from others to build yourself that you wake up spiritually bankrupt.
And this is the result. This is the end game of that debt. You wake up wearing a social mask that is literally fused to your face. It's a mask built from other people's opinions, likes, and expectations. And by the time you realize it's there, it's stuck. The real you is somewhere underneath, completely atrophied. I mean, listen to this quote. It's pretty brutal, but it's powerful. If you do not learn to be alone, you will forever be a ghost haunting your own life. Just think about that. A ghost in your own life, just waiting, hoping someone else will come along and tell you that you're real. That's the true price you pay.
Okay, but it's not all doom and gloom. There is a cure. So now we pivot from the problem to the solution, and it's called the Strategic Solitude Cure. This is how you start to reclaim your own resonance.
Just look at the difference here. On one hand, you have passive loneliness. That's the symptom. It's when you fear the silence, you're desperately seeking validation, and your identity is basically outsourced. But on the other hand, you have strategic solitude. That's the cure. Here, you don't fear the silence, you audit it. You don't seek resonance, you generate it. You're building a sovereign identity. It's a total shift from being a victim of your circumstances to being the architect of your mind.
So how do we actually do this? How do you implement the cure? Well, there's a clear, actionable framework for it. It's called the Sovereign Solitude Protocol.
And it's broken down into 3 very clinical steps. Step 1, the 24-hour social blackout. This is like a quarterly diagnostic test for your internal resonance. Can you handle it? Step 2, the core value audit. This is where you do a technical audit and just liquidate any beliefs that are not serving your sovereignty. And finally, step 3, the monologue sculpting. This is daily silent contemplation to build up your cognitive autonomy.
Okay, let's drill down on step 2 for a second, that core value audit. The key is to ask yourself this one surgical question. Which of my current convictions were placed there by someone else to make me more manageable? This is huge. It's designed to help you identify and just get rid of any belief that you're holding on to, not because it's truly yours, but because it makes you easier for other people to control or predict.
Now, if you follow this protocol, it leads to a very specific, very powerful state of mind. And let's be clear, the goal here isn't to become some hermit who hates everybody. Not at all. The goal is to achieve a state called preferred indifferent.
So what on earth is that? It's a state of such centered internal resonance that the presence or absence of other people becomes a matter of preference, not need. You get it? You're so solid in who you are that you don't need people around to feel okay. Having them around is a choice, a preference, not a desperate move to fill some inner void.
And this final quote just says it all, really. You walk alone, not because you have to, but because your destination is too exclusive for the crowd. See? Solitude is no longer a punishment. It's a choice. It's a sign that you're on a path that's just too unique for most people to follow. It becomes a mark of exclusivity, of purpose.
So there you have it. That's our deep dive into strategic solitude. The ultimate takeaway? Real sovereignty isn't found out there in the noise. It's forged in the quiet. And the final word on the matter is simple, but it is profound. Stay silent, stay wise.